Well, what a way to start off the new year. What a way, in fact. You motherfuckers are mad as fuck about the Stranger Things Season 5 finale. And honestly, I gotta tell you guys, how did you not see this coming? The writing was on the wall. The proof was in the pudding. Based on the first 2 volumes of Stranger Things Season 5, based on the writing and how the characters were being portrayed, and just how everything was going to go from this point on, how did you not see that this ending, or the finale itself, was going to be lackluster and filled with so many plot holes, a lot of things that are just simply not going to be addressed? And you have a lot of frustrated fans that are, coming to terms with this fact and just coping over the amount of plot holes, the lack of good storytelling, or a lack of good closure with a lot of these characters. How did any of you not see this coming? Honestly, here's what I would ask all these fans out here, all these low IQ, QAnon type people that are making so many fucking theories about how there's actually a secret episode coming. Hashtag conformity. I've got a question for all you weirdos out there. Okay, let me set this up for you. If a snake tells you it's a snake, are you gonna get mad when it bites you? I want you to think very long and hard about that question, because I know a lot of you don't think in general, but I want you to ponder on that question. Just sleep on it, in fact. But I say all that to say that a lot of you guys, you're being very over dramatic right now, okay? You're not thinking very rationally about this or why things ended the way they did. And I see that for a lot of you, you're losing a bunch of sleep over this, and that is not a good way to start off the new year. In fact, your approach to everything is completely wrong. In this video, I'm going to thoroughly go over why that is. But before I do all that, I want you guys to go ahead and do your due diligence and like and subscribe to the channel, because you are not going to want to miss out on this certified banger content in the new year. That's right, new year, new video. We're starting things off on a high note, as we should always be doing when the new year starts, because I know a lot of things, just not much happens in the month of January. I get it, they call it the January blues. At least that's what I've been seeing with a lot of emails from my fast food joints or local fast food joints. But regardless of that, I want to start things off on a positive note for the beginning of this year, because it can be the hardest sometimes to get started. You have a fresh new start. It's not always the easiest thing to do, but I want to help you guys make that process a lot easier with a banger video like this one. So hit the like if you actually like this video, and subscribe to the channel if you want more content like this one. And always hit the hype button that's in the description below or somewhere, and make sure to comment once you're done watching this video, sharing your thoughts on what you think of this overall content. But with all that being said, let's get right into the video about the good and the bad of the finale of Stranger Things and the desperation from the fandom. Now, before I get into my positives and negatives with the Stranger Things finale, I do want to touch upon the theater experience, because I did go see the finale in theaters. I went to one of my local Regal cinemas, because they were one of the few theaters that actually had show times for the finale, or even one that had any seats available, which that was a whole process in itself. I'm not going to really get into that, but despite all that, I did go see this in the cinemas, and it was quite an experience. I'll just put it that way. And I actually went with a sibling of mine. We get to the theater and we see this long ass concession line, because we were somewhat late. The show hadn't started yet, but we were like maybe 10 minutes before showtime had actually started. And we get there, line is really long, and we're trying to figure out why the line was taking so long. And it was because everybody was trying to use their voucher code for the concession stand, because if you had purchased a ticket for the Stranger Things finale, I think a lot of the theater chains were giving you a voucher for the concessions. And I think ours was $11 off for any sort of concessions. There wasn't a limit to how much you had to spend or whatever. But yeah, it was taking a long time because the theater employees were having to punch in the numbers, or the voucher numbers, for everyone. And that was probably taking the longest out of anything. And a lot of people had all sorts of families with them, or just friends or whatnot. And everybody was putting in their vouchers and shit. And I think they were probably doing separate transactions just so they could use their vouchers, because I don't think you could use multiple vouchers in one transaction. But despite all that, we get there. It takes a minute for us to get our snacks and shit. And I noticed the sort of demographic that we were witnessing, or just that was watching this movie. And I gotta say, Stranger Things fandom is probably one of the weirdest fandoms out there. I'm not going to say it's on par with like anime fandoms. I know some of y'all are going to get really pissed off because a lot of you may like anime and those fandoms, but y'all are fucking weird. I'm just going to put it that way. Y'all are really fucking weird. And Stranger Things, it's a different kind of weird, but I noticed a lot of you weirdos with your paint and nails, especially guys. I don't know why you're still fucking doing that, but I noticed a lot of the goth girls that were there, and I'm not talking about the attractive ones. I'm not talking about the attractive ones. I'm talking about the ones that are like kind of overweight for the most part. But yeah, you have that sort of demographic, and then of course you have the flip side of that, where you get to sit next to the Huzz in the cinema room. Yeah, I got to sit next to the Huzz in my theater room when I was able to sit down after like all the previews were shown. And like I actually got there in time because like the show had just started. Like they played all the previews for Regal and did the commercials and all that gay bullshit. I get there, I sit next where I go to my seat because my sibling and I were both kind of separated for the most part, and we were sitting on different levels, and I'm at the very top, and I'm over in an area where I'm sitting next to this couple, and of course I'm the lucky guy that gets to sit next to the Huzz, and this Huzz next to me, I think she was crying at certain points in the movie, or not the movie, the finale. And I almost let my intrusive thoughts win because her boyfriend was kind of comforting her throughout the movie at certain times. Like he's like holding her knee or whatever, like holding her hand. And I almost stuck my hand out. I'm like,
hey, are you okay over here? Is everything gonna be alright?
And you know what? If I had done that, I feel like this video that I'm making would have probably been all about that and that whole experience, because if I let my intrusive thoughts win during that moment, I probably would have gotten my ass knocked out and probably would have had the whole theater against me and everybody beating the shit out of me for doing that. But thankfully I didn't do that. I didn't let my intrusive thoughts win. We're not going to let our intrusive thoughts win in the Sly 26. We're not going to let that happen. That's going to be a New Year's resolution. If I have an intrusive thought, I'm not going to act on it. Unless I know the bitch is single. But even then, I probably won't talk to her because I don't really go on dates. And I'm one of the few YouTubers that's on his incel arc, or at least a true incel arc, until I meet the one, which will probably never happen. But never say never. Stranger things have happened. No pun intended. Now let's get back to the show, and no more incel talk. Now, something I noticed during my theater experience were the amount of cheers and applauses that occurred, because you would think that, going online and seeing the sort of discourse around the finale and how everyone fucking hates it, it's as bad as, Game of Thrones Season 8 or the finale of Season 8. Well, see, if you were at my theater room, you would think that's like completely bullshit, or that whole premise is false, because everybody in my theater room was cheering like there was no tomorrow. I almost thought I was in a fucking Marvel movie, or like this was Avengers Endgame 2.0, or even Spider-Man No Way Home type of theater reaction. Like, that's the kind of energy that was going on in my cinema room. And maybe it's different. That was different for your theater experience. I don't know what your theater experience was like. Maybe it was dead silent because of how much people didn't like the sort of conclusion that was brought forward to them. And keep in mind, I stayed off the internet a day before I even saw this finale in theaters, because I know so many people are spoiling the shit left and right. Like, you couldn't even go on like X or Instagram or any other social media site without this finale being spoiled completely, or like someone airing out their grievances with how the Duffer Brothers concluded this whole series altogether. Like, that's how bad it was. And after I watched the finale, like, my initial thoughts were, it wasn't that bad. Could have been better. I'll admit that much. It could have been way better than what we were given, but it wasn't enough to the point where I'm losing sleep over how things ended. Like, that's where I stand on this. And according to the world itself, or just the sort of discourse that we're seeing online, that's not the case. Everybody's just fucking up in arms about this finale. They're mad at the Duffer Brothers, saying how incompetent they are, how many plot holes there were, and they just simply don't like the way things ended after, how long this series has been going on. They are comparing the writing from season 1 all the way up to now. They simply don't like it. It's getting to the point where it's almost becoming deranged, to the point where they're hoping that the conformity gate is real, or episode 9 is real. Like, that's how bad it's gotten. And we're going to kind of get into that later. I don't mean to get ahead of myself, but I'm just trying to paint you a picture of like what I initially thought about this finale compared to like how everyone else sees it, or what I suppose is everyone else, but you never know. The internet's not really a real place, and the overall discourse around this, in my opinion, is overly dramatic. Like, yes, I understand that there are a lot of things that went wrong and why a lot of you are showing your contempt for the season finale. Like, I get it. That point isn't lost with me. It really isn't. But just I think there is way too many people just being overly dramatic about it, and we're going to get into that later. But just kind of going back to the overall theater experience, yeah, a lot of people were cheering for a lot of the scenes, especially the scenes that were getting heavily criticized, or actually just like a lot of the sequences that were getting criticized, like how long the battle was with Vecna and the Mind Flayer, like, and how short that was. Everybody in my theater, like, nobody was like really thinking about that, or at least from my understanding, just based on the cheers alone. But like when, especially in that scene where Joyce cuts off the head of Vecna, and she goes, "You fucked with the wrong family." Like, people in my room were clapping and shit. I was like, okay. But I do recall one scene that I don't recall hearing anyone clap or cheer for, was that fake out bullshit scene where Steve Harrington looks like he's about to fall to his death, and then it cuts to black. And then then it gets back into the show itself, or Jonathan grabs his hand or whatever. When that moment happened, I think everybody in my theater room, you may have heard a couple of gasps and whatnot, but I think people kind of noticed how cringe that was. And I honestly thought they were going to cut to commercial break when they did that cut to black shit, because I thought, like, what the fuck is this? Like, are we going to cut to a Truvada ad or something because of how gay this shit is? Like, I just, that was so off-putting to me. I don't like when movies or shows do that, especially TV shows. Like, I understand the cut to black shit if it's formatted for, like, an on TV, or, like, if it's a show that's going to air on cable TV and they have to put in the cut to black shit for the commercials. That's what I thought this was, and it wasn't. So that was such an odd thing to witness. And I just don't like the fake out. The fake out shit, and this is where we're going to get to the bad kind of part of the Stranger Things finale. The fake out scenes were just honestly annoying. We kind of fast forward to the ending of the finale itself in the theater. I heard a lot of applauses and cheers at that point. There wasn't really anyone like kind of showing any sort of discontent with it, or at least from what I saw. Maybe there were some that were just kind of like over it at that point, or they just weren't in favor of how things ended with the finale. But yeah, that's the overall theater experience. Kind of the overall reaction that I witnessed was nothing like you're seeing online, where everybody is airing out their grievances. Everybody's pointing out the plot holes, how much they hate the Duffer Brothers, how they want to beat the shit out of the Duffer Brothers. That's all the social media timelines are compared to what I saw in person. And now, I'm not trying to sound low IQ and give out anecdotal evidence for certain reactions in real time compared to the online discourse. That's not at all what I'm trying to do, but I'm just trying to paint you a picture of how not everything is always as it seems. You may see negative reactions online, but sometimes in person, it's a completely different reaction. Sometimes not as negative as what you're seeing, but with this one, I just thought it was very interesting and just something worth pointing out. But now that that's out of the way, the overall theater experience, now it's time to get into the good and the bad of Stranger Things. And of course, as always with yours truly, I always like to start off with the bad, because I always like to end things on a high note, at least for the most part, but this video might be the exception to that, because the overall reception that this finale is getting is, let's just say, not the greatest. I think when it comes to the bad of this finale, is going to be something that I think most people have already covered, such as the plot holes, the writing itself, the character development or the lack thereof. I don't know what else I could say that nobody else has already covered, because I could just list out all the plot holes and the poor character decisions or the character choices that are made during the finale, and how a lot of them just don't make sense for the most part, or just a bit lackluster. One way I would summarize the overall bad of the Stranger Things finale, or just this season in general, is trying to do too much without really doing anything at all. And this method is something I would call the Chris Stuckman cop-out method. And I know no one else has used this sort of method or even called it this method, because none of you posers are that creative to think of something like that, and I am, so fuck you. No, but in all seriousness, this sort of method is being utilized by Hollywood. I can't believe we're using a YouTuber's method in how to tell a story, or in fact, how to end one. And some of you are asking yourselves, or asking me in fact, "Hey asshole, what is this method? You sound like you know shit. What does this even mean?" Well, I'm here to tell you, dear viewer, this method is where, kind of like I mentioned earlier, where you're doing too much without doing anything at all. You have a lot of setups with little to no payoffs. And you're hoping most people will not notice this. But in fact, they do. And unfortunately, the Duffer Brothers and even someone like Sean Levy have succumbed to this method, and unfortunately, it is costing them their credibility. And it also doesn't help that the Duffer Brothers keep running their mouths over the plot holes and stuff, and like where certain characters are after the finale, like why some people don't show up and why some things were kind of left open-ended, like the Demogorgons and the Demodogs not showing up during the final fight with Vecna and the Mind Flayer. It definitely didn't help that they kept running their mouths, because then it just kind of proves to everyone else that what they had already thought in their heads, that the Duffer Brothers didn't really have a plan with how to end things off. They're kind of incompetent when it comes to telling this overall story, or just honestly a lack thereof. I don't really think they had an actual game plan for how things were going to end. And they were just kind of just going with the flow, or another way of looking at this, kind of phoning it in, just like the actors were with their performances. And something I noticed during like the final episodes was this sort of like approach they were taking, where it's like, I call it the Avengers Endgame approach. I know I've already referenced Marvel movies here and there during this video, but something I noticed with a lot of the actors' performances, or at least the dialogue in itself, was the fact that they were doing like certain callbacks to different episodes from earlier seasons, and they were having to like say certain famous catchphrases, or at least even with Derek, I noticed this one with him where he's like, "Suck my fat one," or "I'm not dipshit Derek, I am delightful Derek." The way he was saying that, it sounded like he was like reciting this at a school play, if that makes any sense. Like the characters are having to basically hit certain check marks of famous catchphrases, certain callbacks to earlier seasons, something like that. Like the way Marvel movies tend to do, like whenever they attempt to nostalgia bait the audience members when it comes to saying certain catchphrases or acknowledging certain moments that have happened in earlier movies. That's what I essentially mean by the Marvel Endgame approach, or the Avengers Endgame approach. Basically what I'm saying is just callbacks without little to no substance. And what also didn't help, despite all the different callbacks to earlier seasons, something that a lot of people noticed during the final episodes was like the gay shit, the girl bossing, the characters doing shit that doesn't make any sense, like for example, Nancy Wheeler just blowing shit up, shooting shit, showing everybody that she's a total badass. I mentioned this in my last video I made on Stranger Things, but the writers made sure to know that Nancy is a badass after all these years. And she's an expert marksman, and she don't need no man to help her out fighting the big giant Mind Flayer. No, she's just going to shoot right at it without any real game plan. And even shoot at a lot of military men that completely outgun her in all certain aspects. She's completely outgunned and outmanned, but apparently she can handle herself and like basically just take them all down with ease and just start throwing Molotovs and whatnot. I don't know if she was the one that threw the Molotov. I can't quite remember at the top of my head, but the point being is that Nancy Wheeler can just basically clutch a 1v100. Basically what I'm saying is add this bitch to your Fortnite lobbies. Just add her. Or even your Marvel Rivals lobbies, because I know this bitch would be a clutch DPS. I just know it. And something else I'd like to add to that, sort of Marvel Rivals analogy is the Marvel Rivals ass team-ups in this show, or this whole finale, where you have the whole gang together, they're about to team up to fight the big bad, and there's always these constant shots where you have the whole gang in a whole shot, and the camera is constantly moving to show you everyone present in the room, or at least in these certain set pieces, because you got to know everyone's there in the room. Especially the one scene where what's his name, Will Byers comes out as gay. We have to have the whole Marvel Rivals team with each other to hear him come out as being a fucking gay ass. Or just have certain scenes where a lot of characters who haven't really interacted with each other in a while have to all of a sudden interact because these are the final episodes, or this is the final episode. And it just kind of makes a lot of the scenes very awkward and not very natural in any sort of way. And it just really goes to show you that it would have benefited the show if the stakes were a lot higher, a lot of characters were killed off much earlier, or maybe not. I'm not saying like so many characters had to be killed off, but I think there were some that should have been to like make the stakes higher, make the scenes have a lot more impact than they actually do. And I thought maybe they were going to right some wrongs with the very final episode where they did a lot of the different fake out scenes, like 11 getting shot at through the tank or whatever. I thought the Duffer Brothers for a second had some balls to actually kill off one of their main stars, or one of the main players in this entire show. But nope, that whole scene was a fake out, and and like I mentioned earlier with Steve Harrington's fake out, him about to fall to his death, and then he's just miraculously caught by Jonathan. See, shit like that is where you start to really lose respect, and it's like we're too scared to have like any sort of stakes because we're afraid that the fans are going to freak the fuck out over, you know, one of their favorite characters getting killed off. And honestly, I'm gonna kind of play devil's advocate here. I think this is kind of the audience's fault in some ways because a lot of the audience members like to claim they like high stakes and like a lot of character, like very emotional moments with their favorite characters. But at the same time, if some of that were to happen, I feel like we would have gotten a sort of like over the top reactions like, oh my god, they fucking killed off 11, or they killed off Mike, or they killed off Steve Harrington. How dare those fuckers? But then at the same time, it's like the writers and the creators all together, they kind of put themselves in a corner with going about it this way, not doing anything that's actually going to impact the story in a meaningful way. Just kind of taking the safe route altogether. That didn't really help them in the long run, and it was almost like they were trying to please everyone without really pleasing anyone. That's what I think this kind of ended up being, honestly, and I think most kind of do realize that, but I think the way some are kind of going about this is a bit off, and the questions that they're asking about like some of the plot holes or the way things ended off, I don't think they're the right questions. And I honestly think a lot of these fans don't actually know how to make good stories, or even especially like the fan theories I keep saying, or like how things should have ended, like the certain fan rewrites. And I'm about to get into that in just a second with the good section, or the somewhat good section of this video. But yeah, that was a lot of the bad with this whole show. I know there's plenty of more that I haven't really listed off, because I know so many people have already listed what they don't like about the show. I've heard it all, I get it. And a lot of you that have been listening to bad, like I do agree with a lot of your points. However, I think the way y'all are going about it is really insufferable. And it's like this whole almost holier than thou, like I'm a heckin' good person. I would have written these characters better. I would have given a better representation to queer folk, especially with the gay scene or whatever. I saw some people saying that, and I'm like, okay, you know what? Nah, fuck that. A lot of y'all will cry up and down that you're more competent than the Duffer Brothers. You as the fans can write better stories than these billion-dollar corporations ever could, or these billion-dollar studios ever could. We have organic ideas. We have fan films that are better than what they're giving us. It's like, okay, you can say all that, but at the same time, I think this is one of those situations where it's like, if you could, then you would. And what I'm referring to here is if you were actually as competent as you say you are, and you're as creative as you think you are, you being the one in these positions in Hollywood, you'd have enough aura, you'd have enough actual charisma to get the job done. But you don't, and that's the problem. A lot of you think you could just burn Hollywood and rebuild it from the ground up, or in fact just get rid of Hollywood altogether. And the problem that I have with that is you kind of need these institutions to make these big budget Hollywood productions, or just the kind of influence that these big institutions have. Trying to go the alternate way when you don't know anything about like the filmmaking industry or how business is done. I think a lot of you, like, your intentions may be pure, but I think you're a little misguided with your approach. And no, this isn't me defending the billion-dollar corporation or the billion-dollar film studios. That's not at all what I'm trying to do. I'm just saying a lot of you need to be realistic with your approaches, because a lot of you just don't understand how power and influence works. You don't know how things get done, how things get made, the type of charisma you need to pull off, you know, shows like Stranger Things, or just like a lot of creative IPs in general. It's kind of in the same way how a lot of people want to get rid of the political institutions. They want to burn the government down and all that stuff and make their own political party. And it's like, you can't make your own political party if you don't have like any sort of money or influence, or you just don't know how political parties work altogether. That's kind of what I'm getting at with how to go about the filmmaking industry. You have to have power and influence to begin with. You need to have a lot of charisma, a lot of financial backing on top of that. Because look at it this way. I'll put it to you in a simpler terms. Can PureFlix, like, can a studio like PureFlix, the ones that make those cringy Christian films, can they produce a Tom Cruise? The answer to that question is no. No, they cannot, because they're not that big, they don't have that sort of influence, and they don't have the charisma to pull off, like, let's say, making another Tom Cruise. Hollywood does, though. But what a lot of you guys will not do when it comes to approaching Hollywood is asking yourselves, who is running Hollywood? Who's pushing all these ideologies we can't stand? Who's doing all that? Is it perhaps people that have a whole Wikipedia page dedicated to their early life history, or just their whole family in general and where they come from? Is it those people that are running Hollywood and pushing those ideologies? Have you ever thought to think of it like that? And most people on YouTube won't look at it this way or even acknowledge that. There are very few that will actually do that. And even if they get to that sort of question, they'll kind of misconstrued it with like, oh, it's just these liberal white people that are running Hollywood. And it's just like, okay, fuck off. But in summary, not to harp on this point too long, you guys have to have power and influence if you want to get shit done, okay? Life isn't a movie. You're not the rebellion that's going to take over the empire. That's just not going to happen. Be realistic about it. Okay, now back to Stranger Things. Holy shit. Now I'm going to kind of keep the good section of this video pretty brief because I've gone on way too long about the bad and all the sort of fandom behind this. But the good I'll mention with the finale itself was the epilogue, even though I'll admit it was a little too long. But the epilogue was pretty solid. A lot of good character moments for the most part. I honestly thought it ended off in a way that was... I don't know if I'd say satisfying, but not to the point where I'm like,
oh my god, this is so fucking shit. I'm gonna lose sleep over this.
It really wasn't like that. Like the final scene where they're playing Dungeons and Dragons for the final time, and then Mike kind of leaves things off in an ambiguous way with Eleven's fate. I thought that was pretty good, even though I still think she died where she was or whatever. Like, it actually wasn't a fake out. There was no real fake out. He was just trying to give the rest of his friends closure with Eleven's fate, and just so they can live the rest of their lives in a way that made sense. Although I will say Will's ending where he ends up at a gay bar, I don't know about that because there was just look up in 1990. What was the second leading cause of death among men ages 25 to 44 years? I would just look that up, and then you tell me about Will's fate. Did he live? Did he survive? I'm gonna say probably not, but that's just me though. That's just a theory though. And a scene that happens prior to the final Dungeons and Dragons scene where the adults meeting up are like Steve Harrington, Nancy Wheeler, Jonathan Byers, and then Robin. All those guys meet up for one final time. And I think this was the one part where I was like, yeah, this is not realistic at all, because most of these people would probably never see each other ever again, especially when you graduate from high school. Because from that point on, a lot of people don't meet up. Like, very few times will they ever meet up or even think to call each other, especially in this day and age. But I think the lesson we should have learned from the ending of Stranger Things, at least when it comes to friend groups, is especially in the D&D scene, the one thing that I would rewrite within the story, if I were a fan rewriting the finale or just like the whole messaging behind it, is you always have to switch up on your day ones. I think that is the one thing that I'm really disappointed in when it comes to the Duffer Brothers not fully thinking through with the overall messaging or the conclusions with these characters. But I would say on the flip side of that, I think that was kind of a blessing in disguise, because I think there was some unintended messaging in this show where it's like, or at least in the finale, where you see someone like Robin after even a year, because I guess her and her little girlfriend broke up, and they don't really tell you why they broke up or like what happened between those two. Like, the one question that they leave unanswered is like, out of this lesbian couple, who struck first? Who beat the shit out of whom? Does Robin have a thing for Steve Harrington? Why was she sitting next to him at the graduation? And also, speaking about the graduation ceremony, is the messaging with Derek sitting next to Holly Wheeler, is the messaging chuds always win in the end? The chud will always get what the huzz? And finally, little Miss Badass over here, Nancy Wheeler, after all this badassery that goes on in this finale, after everything is said and done, she ends up as a career woman, a woman who is single and looks miserable as fuck. Is the messaging behind this is that if you go the girl boss route, it actually doesn't work out for you in the end. You just end up in a $10,000 studio apartment trying to do the work boss or the girl boss culture. If you try partaking in that, it doesn't work out for you in the end. You're just miserable and you have an empty egg carton. Is that the messaging? Now, if you see what I just did here, this is what we call making something more enjoyable than it actually is. Y'all can learn something from me, so-called Stranger Things fans, and this is honestly where I think you guys get things wrong. And I'm only saying that because I gotta live up to the title of this video where it's like, you're wrong about Stranger Things. Because I think a lot of you are approaching this very wrongly. A lot of y'all you don't know how to enjoy the little things. You don't know how to make light of bad, and that's a problem, and I'm here to help you fix that. Because I think a lot of you're completely miserable because things didn't go your way. The writers didn't address every single plot hole or every little loose end that may have not been tied up in earlier seasons. I get that, but at the same time, the show went on way too long, and I already said this in a prior video. A lot of y'all, I think you approached this completely wrong, and honestly, it's kind of your fault for doing this. You should have seen where the wind was blowing, the writing was on the wall, the proof was in the pudding. Things were not going to go the way you thought they were going to go. In fact, they ended up way worse than what you initially thought, and what you had in your head. No amount of fan theories, fan rewrites is going to help with the fact that you just simply weren't paying attention. You may have been paying more attention to the plot holes, the set design inconsistencies. You may have been paying attention to all that, but you were not paying attention to the fact that you let your own ego get out of control. You let your theories get out of control. You let your headcanon get out of control. You let it all get out of control instead of paying attention to the fact that you were always going to get a lackluster finale, especially for those that always acknowledge how woke and bunch of DEI slop Netflix has infused with its TV shows and even movies altogether. You all have acknowledged that, but then for some reason, you let your guard down with this one, with the finale altogether, and you're losing sleep over it, and then you're coping with the fact that there is no secret episode 9, #conformitygate. You're all going to cry about that shit, and you know what? You may say, fuck the Duffer Brothers, but I say, fuck you. And fuck your fan rewrites, fuck your fan theories, fuck your fanfics, fuck all that. And fuck the audience members that made this happen. You guys let your guard down and the rest is history. This is on you, not on the Duffer Brothers. So you can go kick rocks. Now, if you made it this far into the video, I just want to say I subverted your expectations, and I'm just low-key fucking with you guys. I just low-key am. I'm here to have fun, not take this shit too seriously, and I think you should approach the same with approaching this finale. A lot of you don't need to be losing sleep over this. This shit's over. You can go move on to, you know, whatever spinoff the Duffer Brothers are working on, and you know what? You may not, and that's okay. But you know what? You all need to enjoy things. You need to enjoy the little things in life. You don't need to put your hopes and expectations into your favorite TV shows and movies, because you just know how these things are going to play out. You just do. And if you want to make a difference in society, or just the way content is being rolled out, or the qualities in your movies and your TV shows, then you need to get some fucking aura. You need to get some sauce. You need to get some money, power, and influence. You need to do those things in no particular order. I don't want to hear anything else about so-called slop. Okay, I don't want to hear it anymore. Find another way to describe your disdain for these movies and TV shows. Just find something else to describe them as. I don't want to hear another person say slop anymore. Y'all have overused that term. You've overdone it. It's over. Move on. Okay, it's time to move on. And one last thing I'll mention with the sort of fandom backlashes with all these, like, you know, different fan theories, these rewrites, these fanfics. Something I saw recently, and I don't want to say it's blasphemy, because that would be blasphemous in itself, but something I saw on Twitter was a stupid bitch saying that Fear Street or whatever was way better than Stranger Things, or the way they structured their story and like queer representation. When I saw somebody say that, I'm like, okay, see, now I want to take the Duffer Brothers side on this, because this is how insufferable y'all are. Y'all always try to come off holier than thou. You know better than these creators. You would do it so much better. And then when I see y'all's takes on how you would make things better, or what you think is better as like a show or a movie, I low-key want to take the op side on things. I just do. Like, I want to start calling you Goyim. I want to start calling you bots. Like, that's how insufferable y'all are. And I don't want you to be like that, okay? I'm here to help you with that. But nah, guys, all jokes aside, kind of. That's pretty much going to do it for this video. I think I've gone on way longer than what I wanted to. I was just going to discuss a few things, but of course, with these sort of videos, these sort of topics altogether, this discussion, I always tend to go a lot longer than I need to, but that's okay. You guys stuck to the end. I appreciate that. But yeah, that's my overall thoughts on this whole finale and the feedback that it's gotten. I think a lot of y'all are doing way too much. You're just saying the same shit as everyone else because it's safe to. And that's not fun. That's just not fun. I like to approach things from a different perspective, a different angle altogether, ways that a lot of you guys won't do it, especially YouTubers, and the ones that grift off the topics like this. I'm not really here to do that. I don't really grift because I don't really make money off of this. I just do it because it's fun, and it's fun to piss some of you off. Even though y'all need to take a nap every now and then, you need to calm down, okay? You don't need to be banking your hopes and dreams or your expectations on these movies and TV shows, especially if you know how things are going to go down, okay? At that point, that's low-key your fault. But in all seriousness, you guys, I appreciate you sticking to the end of this video. If you liked today's video, go ahead, drop a like, hit the subscribe button if you want to see more content like this, and always make sure to hit that hype button or the hype feature, because I want to get these videos out on a larger scale for a relatively small channel. That's what the hype feature is for, so please feel free to hit that button and comment down below whether you agree or you disagree with my take on this matter. Additionally, what did you guys think of the season finale of Stranger Things? What did you think of season 5 altogether? Did you like it? Did you not? Are you kind of in agreement with everyone else with what kind of slop this season finale was, or just the overall season in general? Do you think the Duffer Brothers are incompetent? Do you think the fandom is doing a little too much? Or is the fandom justified with their hatred overall, or just their overall disdain for what we've gotten with the finale? I want to hear from you guys, and with that being said, that's going to do it for today's video. I appreciate you guys, and I will happily catch you all in the next one. Goodbye for now.